yesterday. So I tell you a very esoteric idea. We're in Parshas Tazria. That's what we started yesterday. Page, I don't know, John, we'll have to talk about that gambling addiction afterwards. Parshas, it's a good thing I don't live. I have such an extreme personality. I would lose. I was a terrible poker player. Terrible. I lost my pants playing poker. You know, I was terrible. I'm the guy they're looking for in casinos. I'm the guy.
Poker players.
I'm the guy. Yeah. Well, poker I wouldn't even play because I would take my pants. I'm the guy. My father, was a very smart man. Chanukah, I was starting to play cards. I was about 17, and I'm starting to play cards. My dad he didn't even let us play cards at home, not even for money. He wouldn't let us play cards. He wouldn't let us play peanut, rummy, all these cards. He wouldn't let us play cards because he felt that if you got nothing to do, it's too easy. When you got nothing to do, just pick up a deck of cards. Solitaire for sure not. He wouldn't let us just sit there wasting time playing cards. And so one Hanukkah, he sat down, me, my dad, and my younger brother was 12. I was 17. I considered myself a card shark, And we're playing, we decided to play poker. My father didn't want me playing cards, so he said, let's play some poker. So I was stupid enough to let him deal. But he dealt. He kept dealing. And by the end of the night, he's up $5. I'm down $5. My younger brother is even, and I'm down $5. And I'm not feeling good about this. And finally, my dad he turns to me, he goes, you don't know the first thing about playing cards. I've been pulling cards on you the whole night over here. What do you call it? From the thing, you don't know the first thing about playing cards. If I could do this to you, then a guy who's really good could take your pants. Promise me you won't play cards and I won't take your $5. I said, okay. Right. So at least one half of the deal worked. He didn't take my $5. I was a lousy card player, and I'm the guy that they want. I'm the guy they want in the casino. I'm spontaneous. I'm spontaneous. I'll go for the big one. That sort of thing. I'm the guy they eat me alive. They eat me alive. That's why you have to stay away from it. And when you're that person, you have to stay away from it. All right. So I'll tell you something very interesting over here in Parshas Tazria. We were talking about yesterday when a guy has let's read this pasuk again. Bottom of page 608. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe vel Aaron lebar. Two very important concepts here. Adam kiyeh beor besoros esos apachas. When a man has in his hide, in his flesh, one of these various, what do you call it? So what does he do? Osapacho baher zahaya beor besoros vehuva el Aaron hakoino el echad mibanav hakoino. He's brought to Aaron hakoino or to one of his sons. 608. Or one of his sons who are the Kohanim, and it does not have to be the Kohen Gadol, by the way. This is any Kohen. And the time you go to any Kohen, and the Kohen then takes a look at it. And there's a whole procedure over here. Because if the Kohen sees the guy is Tameh, in other words, the Kohen is an expert on reading these signs, on seeing, and not reading them, that's the incorrect word. He's an expert on the halachas of what constitutes a sign of tuma, of impurity, what constitutes just like you said yesterday, Blake, you call it eczema. What is it? Is this a manifestation of lashon hara, or just that the guy's got some sort of skin issue? So he goes to the Kohen. Now, the first thing over here is you'll notice when the Torah wants to talk. How do you say a man in Hebrew? Ish. Ish is man. What is Adam really? Adam is really human. He's really a human. Adam Harishon was the first human. The first human. There's a difference. There's a subtle difference. The Alshich, who was one of the great commentaries, was living in Sfas around the time of the Arizal. He was the Alshich, Rav Shlomo Alkabitz. You ever heard the Lecha Dodi? Lecha Dodi that we sing every Friday was compiled on Shabbos. Was compiled by Rav Shlomo Alkabitz, who was one of the members of that Sfas group. And one of these, the people during that era was Rabbi Moshe Alshich, who wrote a fabulous commentary on the Torah, which is a combination of the plain meaning, layers, a little bit of Kabbalistic ideas, a lot of symbolism, a lot of very, very fascinating, very warm commentary. So the Alshich says like this. The Torah says, Adam, when a human, it's really man, but it's the highest word, the highest level of man. It's like saying to you, I could call a 16-year-old, I could call him an adolescent, and I could call him a teenager. And it's not a great example. I'm just using it. Which one would you say is a better example? A higher level, teenager. Adolescent always has some sort of negative connotation, even though purely it isn't. Adolescent simply means he's a teenager, but it carries a negative connotation. A higher level, not that there are any high levels for teenagers, but a higher level would be to call him a teenager. I'm just using it as an example, and it's not a very good example. I can't think of anything else right now. You could call him Ish. You could have just either said Ish kiye or Bisoro. But instead it says Adam. Adam means a higher level. Let's call it a dignified person. Let's call it that for argument's sake. Okay. So the question number one is, why does the Torah, in describing the various plagues that a person can be infected by, why does the Torah use the highest level terminology, number one? And number two, if you look on the top of the next page, and it says, V'hoya be'or besoro. The word V'hoya, the Gemara says, we often find the word V'hoya is an indication of something to be happy about. Why would anybody be, oh good, I got Saraz. I'm having a great day. How are you? Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. And Saraz too. Why would the Torah tell you? Why would the Torah tell you? You know, it's like they say, you know, besides that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? You never heard that, Mike? You never heard that expression? They always say, you know, when somebody's kvetching, when somebody's having a rotten day, they say, and besides that, you know, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? You know, so I thought that's a very old expression. So I think I learned from my mother years ago. So you know, it's like when a guy's going, you know, I got stuck in traffic. The boss was upset with me. He's cutting my salary, and I got a cold also. Yeah. Besides that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? You know, that's the context that it's used in. So, so it's a great line. It's a great line. So why would you say over here? Why would you use a terminology that indicates something happy? So two questions. So the Alshich puts it together, and then we're going to show it how it applies in our life. There's a Gemara that says the Jewish people are called Adam. Atem kruyim Adam. You are called Adam, whereas the nations of the world do not go by that description of Adam. Doesn't mean that they're not human. They're obviously human. But the word Adam is something that is, there's actually, I think it was the Chassam Sofer, there was some sort of, somebody, you know, back in Europe, they're really looking for reasons to start up with the Jews. So some apostate came to one of the kings and he said, the Jewish people say you're not human. The Jewish people say you're not human.
Jewish people?
The Jewish people say that he claimed, this guy went to one of the non-Jewish kings and the anti-Semites and he said, the Jewish people say you're not human. So he proved it to him because the Gemara says, Atem kruyim Adam, you're called Adam and the rest of the people are not called Adam. So one of the great Jewish rabbis came in to defend the Jewish people. He said to the king, look, this is the time of, I think, the Mendel Bayless blood libel, that he was on trial. So he said to the king, look, if somebody gets killed in another country, does it bother you? Do you lose any sleep? So he goes, no, not really, you know, unless it's a close relative of mine. He goes, here we have one Jew who's on trial, and you got everybody, all the Jews in the world are concerned about this one Jew over here. Right? You wouldn't be concerned about some guy in Argentina who got killed in a car crash if it had nothing to do with you. Yet here, one Jew in the world, the whole Jewish world is up in arms about it. He says, because Adam, it's not a derogatory term. It's a description of being one body. The Jewish people are one body. And he accepted his argument that it wasn't. In other words, it's not disparaging to the non-Jews. It's describing a higher level. If you're a sergeant in the army, that's not insulting. If I'm a colonel and you're a sergeant, I haven't insulted you. I'm just described what higher level I'm at. I didn't insult you in any way. You happen to be a sergeant. That's nothing. If I say you're a dog, that's something else. But you're not. You're a sergeant. So you're not. I haven't insulted you. I'm a colonel. You're a dog. So I've just insulted you. Here I'm saying I'm a colonel. You're a sergeant. I'm not putting you down. I'm just happy to say that I'm on a certain level, certain plateau. So the word Adam, over here means. And this is why it's a sign of happiness. Why do you know that there's no such thing as tsaras by non-Jews?
What's tsaras?
Leprosy, the spiritual leprosy, which we've been talking about. There is no spiritual leprosy. There is no tsaras by non-Jews. There's no spiritual leprosy. And only this law that you speak Lashon Hara and you can get punished for it, is something that's unique to the Jews. So why is that a source of happiness? Why does that why is that happy? The answer is because it's an indication of our level. The fact that we're on, you know, if you take a white shirt and if you take a black shirt and you sprinkle mud, or a dirty shirt, you sprinkle grease or mud on it, it's not going to show up. If you take a white shirt and you sprinkle one little dot of grease or mud on a white shirt, and it stands out. Why? Because the shirt is cleaner. The cleaner somebody is, the more it stands out. You know, sometimes guys tell me, you know, when I was in university, on a college campus, you know, the girls all over the place. I've heard this many times. You know, girls all over the place. It never even bothered me. I wasn't thinking about it all day long. You know, that's why all of a sudden I go to yeshiva and I'm away from girls and I'm trying to control my eyes a little bit. And every time I see a girl, it's like, I've heard this many times, and it's true, right? But it's not true. It's not true. Because the guy in university sees it and it's affecting his neshama as well. He's just so desensitized. His shirt is so muddy, it's another clump of mud got thrown up on his shirt. It just didn't show up as much. The guy is wearing a clean shirt, is walking around. All of a sudden he said, doink, right? It shows up. Then all of a sudden it leaves more of an impression. The reason the Torah uses an expression of happiness is because the Torah is telling us, hey, you know what? You should be happy that you're on the level of Adam, and therefore this is happening to you. Not that we're happy about the thing itself. It's an indication of our level. I wouldn't even waste my energy on somebody else. Can you imagine a coach is working with a player on a very subtle move, right? And he doesn't work with another player. Well, the fact that he's working with you on a subtle move means that you've got the basic moves down already. I can now work on you with the subtleties. You haven't even learned to dribble yet. I could work on the subtleties. You have no idea what's going on, what they're working on at a higher level, right? I'm not at that level, so I have no idea. I can't possibly fathom it. The higher the level, the more the subtleties are. So if there's such a spiritual subtlety over here that a person speaks Lashon Hara and you get punished for, wow, there's something to celebrate there. I got to do tshuva, and I got to stop talking Lashon Hara, and I got to stop being haughty, and I have to stop doing the things that cause it. But at least it's an indication of who I am. Remember, I told you that if I get upset with you, for something subtle, that's an indication that you're on a higher level. A guy who's in prison and he forgets to bench. Nobody gets upset with him. A guy who's in yeshiva and forgets to bench. Why do you mean you didn't bench? Well, you ate bread and you didn't bench? I mean, you wouldn't be upset if it was an Italian who's Italian in a tavern who didn't bench. That you wouldn't be upset with. Right, because I expect more from you. And by the way, that's how you talk to kids when kids mess up. When you're raising children, I'm not a big psychologist, but what you should say to a kid when you're upset with a kid, say, a boy like you doesn't do that. You've delivered the message. A boy like you doesn't do that. Right? Because you built him up. As you're you're building him up. A boy like you doesn't do that. Very few kids are going to try to say, I'm not a boy like me. Right? I did this once, and I should have done this more often. I've only done this once. Years ago, I was on a bus, and a group of guys got on. You could see they were troublemakers. They got on the bus, and there was a frum girl sitting on the bus, and they started making some comments. So I was sitting there. I wasn't interested in getting involved with four of these guys who all looked like they grew up when meat was cheap, and so I what do you call it? I didn't know. So I turned to the guy who I figured was the leader of the group, and I said, "Listen, everybody sees you got a golden heart. You know, you really should. You got a good heart. You really shouldn't be doing this. Now, it's not becoming of you." I said in Hebrew, "Yesh lecha lev tov, ze lo matim lecha." Me and Marsh used to live there. He said, who said I have a good heart? Guys, cut it out. Who said I have a good heart? And very few people, if you give them, if they come, they will turn it down. Very few people say, no, I don't have. I'm rotten to the core. They don't believe that. Nobody believes that. Nobody really. Everybody thinks about themselves that they're good, even if they say they're not. They try with all the macho and bravado. They're really. Say, I only did it once. I should have done it more often because it works. It works. You just have to have the poise to do it, not be nervous. Because if you're nervous, they see through it. You have to have poise to do it. And they're saying to this girl, I don't know how much she understood, but she understood what they were saying or not, but I did. Right, so they were, that's why you have to, what do you call it? So that's an indication of who you are. So you build a person up. A boy like you doesn't do that. And also, sometimes it works. Sometimes he goes, really? Then he hits his sister again. It doesn't, it's not foolproof. But that's idea number one. This is extremely important for Balei Tshuvas. The area that I told you especially. Well, how come all of a sudden now I'm being affected by things I was never affected by? And the answer is because you have grown. That's why. It's because that's a good sign. If it's bothering you now, it's a good sign. If it never bothered me before, of course it didn't bother me. How could it bother me if you're in a cesspool? How should it bother you? A bad smell doesn't bother you in a cesspool. But if you're in a flower shop and you smell something bad, then you understand that there's a problem over here. So that's idea number one. Idea number two is why he goes to the Kohen. So, the Kohen, the first Kohen was Aaron HaKohen, what was his reputation? What's Aaron HaKohen known for?
Peace.
He's the man of peace. So he's the Ohev Shalom V'Rodev Shalom. So Aaron HaKohen is the man of peace. He's the Ohev Shalom V'Rodev Shalom. And since Lashon Hara is something that creates animosity, it creates conflict, therefore it's specifically the Kohen that's either brought to either Aaron HaKohen, that's why the Torah says, bring him to Aaron HaKohen, who is the symbol of peace, of brotherhood, or bring him to another Kohen who's a descendant of Aaron. That's the plain meaning. That's one of the simpler ideas why you go to a Kohen. But the Alshich says a much deeper idea. The Alshich says that the Kohen is the ultimate in Kedusha, in holiness. Listen to this one, Israel. The Kohen is the ultimate in Kedusha. The impurity is on a person's body and it wants to penetrate in and go deeper and deeper. So what does the Kohen do? If you look at the third pasuk, V'roah HaKohen es hanega. The Kohen looks at the plague. He looks at the nega. Third line from the top of 610. V'roah HaKohen es hanega. Right? Now, the plain meaning is that the Kohen looks at it in order to determine, is this tamei or it's not? The also says it's deeper. It says that the Kohen who is the Kedusha, he zaps it with his eyes. He zaps the tumah. He doesn't get rid of it because the guy's going to have to be closed off. But he neutralizes it. Right? He zaps it with his eyes. He neutralizes the what do you call it? That's why specifically the Kohen, because the Kohen is the opposite. In Kushaka, we're into esoteric ideas over here, and what it means I can't tell you. But at the end of the day, that's part of the idea here. The what do you call it? I once read or saw on TV or something. I think I must have seen it on TV because there's a bird up on a tree, and a snake is slithering along, and the snake looks at the bird, catches the bird's eye. Oh yeah, I saw it. He catches the bird's eye, and the bird is paralyzed with fear. Now all the bird's got to do is go flying away. The snake can't possibly get at the bird, and the bird is standing there looking at the snake. And you see this bird just kind of freezes up, and all you're doing while you're just thinking, come on, baby, fly, will you fly? Don't do it, kid, don't do it. Yeah. And the bird just next thing you know, he freezes up and falls right off the branch, and the snake, he's dead. I think he's dead before the snake gets him. He just paralyzed with fear. There's a power in the eyes. There's a power. Have you ever been in a room? Ever been in an auditorium? There could be 500 people in the auditorium. There's somebody sitting on the other side, male or female. Somebody's sitting on the other side, and it's a guy. Let's say it's a guy's wearing a funny hat, or he's got a funny ear, or something like that. And you're staring at this guy, and you figure that as soon as he starts moving, you're going to look away, right? And you're staring at this guy, and also the guy also turns around. He's sitting like this. Also, he just goes, and he locks in right on you, who's staring at you. Right? It happens all the time. Why?
You feel the energy.
From what? The eyes. Isn't that interesting thing? There is some sort of energy there is clearly an energy in the eyes. There's something about the eyes, Kabbalistically, the eyes are the window of the neshama. The eyes are the window of the neshama. It's very interesting proof. The eyes are the most spiritual part of the body. First of all, I'm still enchanted with my grandchildren now. I used to do it with my children. But my grandchildren, a little baby is lying in the crib. You look at the baby makes eye contact with you. Who do it the baby to make eye contact? Why does the baby look at my nose? Why does the baby look at my beard? The baby look at, I got a beard. Kids are enchanted by beards, meaning they don't like them. But why they automatically make eye contact with you? My own kids, what I used to do, they'd be sleeping in the crib, and they're sleeping, and I would walk into the room quiet as an Indian, so you can't peg it on any sort of noise that I made. I would tiptoe in, child's sleeping peacefully, and I would just stare at him to see if something happens. And probably more often than not, at a certain point, he would start stirring. If they woke up fully, I would just say to my wife, by the way, baby's up, you want to take care of it. So my wife said to me there, sir, my wife said to me, I could probably get arrested for certain things I did with my kids. But I was just experimenting. And what do you call it? Because I wanted to see if there's that eye energy. So there's always accusations of making noise or breathing too loudly, but it wasn't. I'm telling you, it was pure eye energy. So there is some sort of, obviously, that's clear. That's clear. The eye, I'll prove it to you. Do you ever get what's it called, an eyelash in your eye? Yeah. Drive you batty, right? And it's one of those things, it's like bumming cigarettes. I don't think any of you ever smoked. I did when I was a teenager. There's a certain international respect for cigarettes. If I have an empty pack and I say something, you got an extra cigarette? Yeah, oh yeah, everybody knows cigarettes is kind of the brotherhood of cigarette smokers. As a matter of fact, when I didn't have money, I would walk around with an empty pack and I saw somebody with a cigarette, I would go, oh, darn it. I said, if you got it, it always worked. And sometimes they didn't even resort to that. They just got to bum a cigarette for you. Everybody knows that works, right? You light, and if somebody needs a light for a cigarette, so does Aish, yeah, that everybody, and if you have nobody who has Aish will not give somebody Aish if they have. It's almost like the union of smokers, right? So there's a union of eye people. If you have an eyelash, something in your eye, you'll go to anybody, stranger, friend, or foe. Say, if I got something in my eye, people have no hesitation. Everybody respects that, right? You go to anybody. Now, why is it that if you have an eyelash on your arm or on your leg, you don't feel it? Huh? No. So let's say it's on your tongue.
It's not sensitive.
Why is the eye sensitive? Why is the eye more sensitive? The eye is the most sensitive to any invading particle.
Oh, that's crazy.
Much more sensitive than your ears. Then you don't have what?
Even your breathing. Can you breathe is like.
Your eye is very sensitive, the most sensitive part to any foreign invader. Why is that? The answer is because spiritual and physical are opposites. The more spiritual something is, the less it could tolerate the physical. We have a neshama. The neshama, the soul, which is pure spirituality, does not want to be in this world. The neshama is here against the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says we are born we're formed against our will, and the neshama was very happy up there. Then the neshama got the tap on the shoulder. You're going into the game now, right? Go to the scorer's table and report in. You're going in. No, not now. No, these guys are big. I don't want to go in there, right? And they say, you're in. They're calling your number now. The neshama does not. The analogy that's used in the Medrash is, it's like the princess who marries the commoner. And the commoner now wants to provide her with the fanciest meal, so he brings out the best sausage that he's got and the nicest black bread that he has, the finest black bread that he has. Hey, look what I made for you, babes. And she takes a look and bursts into tears because she's the princess from the palace who's lived only ate the finest foods, and that's the neshama doesn't want to be here. So you've got this conflict between the ruchni, which is the spiritual, and the physical. So as soon as the eye, which is spiritual, and we sense that the eye is spiritual, as soon as the eye, something physical invades it, that means that you've got a conflict now between the physical and the spiritual. That's why the eye is also the highest point on the body. Because the higher something is, it's like it says that Israel is besides the head, the highest usable part of your body, unless you play soccer and you're knocking in headers, right? But the hardest point, or you headbutt somebody. That's also, I've always been intrigued by that. But the concept of headbutting is very intriguing. I have a guy in the other yeshiva on Purim. Him and some other guys were drunk, and one of the drunks fell on the ground. He was very drunk, so he was lying on the ground. And some teenager, some pushtak came over and stepped on the guy on the ground. So this guy happened to be a very strong guy, and he punched this guy. He got into the fight. My student punched the guy a couple of times, and then he came back to the yeshiva, and he has a broken nose, because what happened after he punched the guy headbutted him and broke his nose, which had already been broken several times. The first time he broke his nose was because he was weightlifting, and he dropped the weights. And he's pushing. This guy was the strongest guy in the yeshiva. He actually dropped the bar right on his nose, which is bad, right? So this guy, he comes back with a broken nose because the guy headbutted him. But other than that fine usage of the head, the most usable part of the body, the highest part, is the eyes. Height always indicates, there's no accident, that the lowest part of the body is waist removal. Because waists, obviously, we understand that there's something not spiritual about that. So the highest part is the eyes. The same way that it says the highest land in the world is Eretz Yisrael. Gemara says Eretz Yisrael is the highest land, because Eretz Yisrael is God. And the highest city in Eretz Yisrael is what? Yerushalayim. And the highest point in Yerushalayim is what? The Beis HaMikdash. So whether it's a description, and it may very well be a description of how many feet or meters it is above sea level, but it's certainly a description of a spiritual idea. The higher it is, it's not just practically because our eyes are down where our knees were, so we'd be banging into things all the time, because this gives us the best look over the horizon. It's far more than that. It's an indication of the ruchnius of the eyes. And we know that this impurity goes into the body through the eyes, because the pasuk says, the eye sees and the heart desires. So it's all good things and all bad things. It starts with the eyes. The lowest point in Israel is where? No, that's true. But where's the lowest point? Is the Dead Sea, right? And there's even a what do you call it? There's a thing on the road that says lowest point in Israel, lowest point on earth or something. I forgot what it says. And people love taking their pictures there. Guys say, take a picture by the lowest point on earth. Hey, bro, I know you're a low person. You don't have to prove it to me. I know you're worthless and useless. When you got to show the world over there and put it out on everybody. Here I am at the lowest point in the world. I finally found the place that I'm most comfortable with. What are you bragging about? Go to the Beis HaMikdash, then we'll talk. Right? So the I always thought, here I am, and it's hot down there too. All of that just so you can have your picture taken at the lowest point on earth. Who's interested? So the eye is the most ruchni part of the body. Even more than that. Do you know what a face is called? What's the Hebrew word for a face? Panim. Correct. Panim. What does the word panim mean, gentlemen? Pnim. Lifnim. Inside. Yeah. That is one of the strangest descriptions of the most external part of our body. The thing that you see first on any person, you see their face. That's the part that you're most in contact with, the most external part of their body. Why would it be called? It should be called the chutz. This is my chutz. The out. Why is it called the pnim? What's the answer? Because you can look at a person's face and you can see what's going on inside him. The face is the description. Now, at a simple level, and we're simple people, not simple people, but we're certainly simple in this regard, I don't have skills of what's called chochmas hapartzuf. There's actually a whole discipline of being able to read a face and understand a lot about the person. I don't know the first thing about it. One thing I do know, I can sometimes look at a person, and I take one look at him and say, boy, this is a guy that no matter whatever happens, I will never lend this guy money. Right, that's for sure. On the first look, right. And there are other guys that you take a look at and say, "Wow, this is a high-level person," and I'm sure you've experienced that as well. You could take a look at a face, and we don't even know the first thing about this about reading faces, because the face, you can look on a face and it's telling you something that's going on inside. You take a look at Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson, I saw The Shining. I went to see The Shining. Right? I was out in the lobby within 10 minutes. No, 15 minutes. My brother was in the lobby within 10 minutes. And then my friend stayed in there and he watched the whole thing. We were just sitting. The guy gave me the creeps before, when he wasn't chasing somebody through a maze. He gave me the creeps, right? I say, you take a look at it, this guy's creepy. There's something about the guy who's creepy. And other people, you take a look at a person. Sometimes, so if you don't know anything, you can look at a person, wow, he looks like a nice guy. He's the biggest villain in the world. But there are certain times where it's fairly obvious, and it's fairly obvious. I know that you're going to have some girls go, hey, you're being very judgmental. Well, hey, girl, at least I have a judge in front of mine. You're just mental, right? You're being very judgmental. Yeah. When a guy's standing there and he's growling away at you, right? You're also going to be judgmental. So don't chinik. But at the end of the day, the panim, the face, is indication of what's going on inside. That's why it's called the panim. That's why the eyes are the most spiritual part. So there is an energy that comes out of the eyes. There's some sort of energy. You know, the Gemara says if you're ever walking somewhere and you're afraid. The Gemara says you're afraid of something, you don't know what you're afraid of, but something you realize there's danger. The Gemara says, how could you realize that? The Gemara says you don't see it, but your mazel sees it. You sense it, which I believe is very much, I don't have a source for this, I'm not making an absolute ironclad claim over here, but I believe that is part of this idea of how somebody across the room you could be staring at, and it happens too often to be just a coincidence that you stare at a person until they turn, and you're expecting as soon as they move that you're going to break your stare, but they always nail you. Right, because you're just kind of locked in. You know, you can't even get. They just kind of nail. So why is that? There's some sort of energy. There are energies. Look, Uri Geller. I don't know if you ever heard of Uri Geller. Was the guy who claimed he could bend metal, bend keys with his mind and that sort of thing. Either he could or he can't. Right? Either he's a great charlatan, or there is some sort of energy that he could use. The point is, if somebody would prove to me, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he's bending things with his mind, I'd say, okay. We don't know anything about various energies that we have. I'm not claiming he is. I'm not claiming he isn't, and I certainly don't. You know, if I had energy with my mind, I would certainly bend the credit card that my wife has in her hands right now and break it in half. But I don't have that energy. 1 second. Let's try. I've never tried it. 1 second. If you hear a big snap, let me know. Oh no, that was the card running through while she's paying. So I don't know. I don't know. We don't know anything about it. We only know that there are realms that we're not what do you call it about. There are realms of what we call spirituality. We don't know about. The problem here is because there are a lot of charlatans out there who think they know. You know, there's a lot of guys who do energy. Ever had energy healing? They move their hand over your knee. Well, most guys who are energy healing, it simply means that they never graduated high school. So they finally found a job where they can move their hands around. It doesn't mean that. Could it be that there is such a thing as energy? It could be. I don't say there isn't. The Stipler walks and talks about, what do you call it? What's called where you press the feet. When you reflexology, we have sources for reflexology. Doesn't mean everybody who does reflexology knows what they're doing. But the Stipler writes about that reflexology could be effective. I've done acupuncture. Acupuncture is effective. Not every acupuncturist is doing the right thing, and it works. But they do use acupuncture for open heart surgery as an anesthesia. So it's obvious they're onto something. There was a doctor here in Israel who was trained. He graduated Harvard Medical School. He trained in China. In what do you call it, acupuncture. I had gone to him for a while. I had been going to him I was suffering from eye pain, the eyes, and I'd gone to him, and my brother had gone to him for various things, and he trained in China, and he said on the one hand, the Chinese have been doing acupuncture for a couple thousand years. They're onto something. On the other hand, he had to convince them not to reuse the same needles without sterilizing them. So cleanliness apparently wasn't their forte. But I did the acupuncture. Boy, some of the reactions of acupuncture are unbelievable. It works. I don't say that it's a cure-all, you know, but that something's happening, there's no question about it. So no question about it. But you got to know what you're doing like anything else.
Getting needles in your head?
You get needles. The first time I went to acupuncture, I had such bad sciatica, it took me a couple of minutes to get out of a car. I don't know, you should never have sciatica. Sciatica feels like like somebody has shortened a rope within your leg, and you got to stretch out. It's terrible pain. And to go from a bent position, like a sitting position, to a standing position was agony. And I could barely get out of a car. It took me time to get out of a car. So I went to the guy, the first time I went to acupuncture, the first thing the guy did was he took a magnet, this huge magnet, and he ran it around my ear. And he said, sit up. I'm sitting on this table. I said, I can't say. He said, sit up. So I sat up, no pain. Took away the magnet, the pain was there. Then he took a pin, a needle, and he put it right over here. Put a needle in over here. He said, okay, sit up. No pain. Took out the needle, the pain was there. That's when I knew that there's something to it. Could he take away the pain completely? That sort of, he even gave me I had at one point a temporary needle, what they call a temporary. It looked like I was walking around with a stud. And you but the temporary didn't work like that, like Gucci, and I couldn't walk around the streets with a sharp needle sticking out. Yeah. And then the other guy did one over here. The guy did one down the side. There's the one that they do over here. This is a key point right over here, right over, and that's the only one that's really sensitive, because that's a very sensitive point, right between where the thumb and the finger. And that was always whatever else he was doing. There was always one that went in over there. So I say they talk about some sort of energy, chi energy, key energy, whatever, all this energy. I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But one thing is for sure. They're onto something. They're onto something. I don't call it chi energy, they call it meridians, call it whatever they call it. But they're certainly onto something. All right.